Welcome to the unofficial Logos Bible software tutorial videos. In this video, we're going to learn the very first steps that you'll take when you open Logos for the first time. We'll look at how to find, open and read a book. We'll look at the home page and the Go button. See how we can set our preferred Bible. Look at briefly the passage guide, exegetical guide and the Bible word study. Very briefly show you searching, look at panels and tabs, and also how you can get help. Now when you open Logos for the first time, probably what you'll want to do next is to see what books you actually have. And to do that, you just look in your library, this button up here. That gives you a list of all the various books in your library, and it tells you how many you own here. If you hover over a book title, it gives you a little description, and you can just click the title to open the book. Just as you would in any other application, you can use the scroll bar to move down in the book, and at various points you'll see text that's highlighted in blue. That's a hyperlink, either to another part of this book or maybe to another resource altogether. Now, if you move your cursor over a hyperlink, the cursor changes to a finger, and it also gives you a little pop-up preview of the location that it's pointing to. One click and it will open that location. Now many of the hyperlinks are to other parts of the books, but an awful lot of them are to other resources, particularly to Bibles. You can see down here there's a hyperlink to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, and as I hover over it I get a little pop-up that gives me a preview of that passage, and again one click and I can open that passage in my Bible. Now sometimes when you hover over a hyperlink, you might get a little pop-up like this. It doesn't take you to another resource, it's just maybe like a footnote or something that's giving you some little extra information. If I click on a link like that, then my little pop-up becomes just slightly more permanent. So now, because I've clicked on it, I can move my mouse away from the footnote and the pop-up still appears. More importantly, the hyperlinks that were in the pop-up are now activated, and I can hover over them or even click on them to go to the places that they're pointing to. Now hopefully as you're reading through your books, there may be times when you want to go to a different section of a book. Let me just very quickly show you the table of contents that you have with all of your books. Here you'll see two little arrows. One click there will then give you a basic table of contents. So you can see as I scroll down, the section that I'm in at the moment, 2 Corinthians chapter 1, that's highlighted in bold. And I can go to any other part of this Bible or other resources. The little arrows expand or collapse a section, and then I just one click and I can jump to that section. It's exactly the same in non-Bibles. So here's a commentary. I can just click and I can see the table of contents. And you can see when I hover over, it expands the text if I can't quite see it on the screen. We'll show you more about how to move around resources in a later video. But for the time being, let's go back to the home page by clicking the home icon here. Now one important item on the home page is the Go box here. And you can see from the text that I'm to enter a passage or a topic. And this Go box is a really helpful way when you're still new to Logos of finding all the resources in your library that are relevant to a particular passage or topic. It's a really helpful quick start, particularly when you're learning Logos afresh. So let's imagine we're studying John chapter 3 verse 23. Type it in and click Go. Now it takes a minute or two for Logos to gather together all the resources that it needs, but while it's generating that, you can see these little boxes here that are moving, showing us that it's still generating things. Let me show you this screen as a whole. On the left hand side here we've got a passage guide and an exegetical guide. We'll come back to that in a moment. In the middle at the top we've got 5 Bibles that have been open to us to the passage that we're studying, and we can click on the tabs up here to flick between any of those Bibles. In the bottom middle, we have a commentary open again to the passage that we're currently studying. Over here on the right, we have an information panel. Again, we'll show you this later in the video, but the information panel works that if I move my mouse over a word in a resource, and just leave it there for a second or two. So let's look at this word here, einon. As I leave my mouse hovered over that word, the information panel updates and gives me a little entry from a dictionary to tell me about that. And I can do that for any word in a resource. So if I move over to John, you can see it brings up the entry for John, and even for words that maybe aren't in the Bible, it will at least look them up for me. That's the information panel. And then down here on the bottom right is a text comparison, and it takes the verse that I'm interested in and shows it me in each of the different Bible versions, and I can scroll quickly and compare them in my mind. Let's go back to the passage guide, because that's the key part of this report. You'll see again there are several sections, and just like we saw earlier, we've got some little expand and collapse buttons that we can use if we want to in order to hide or show particular sections. We've got a section here for commentaries that show me all the commentaries on John chapter 3 verse 23, with a more button that I can click to see even more of them. All I need to do is hover to get a little description of what that book is, and then one click and that commentary will open for me to that particular spot. As I scroll down, we've got cross-references to other relevant parts of the Bible. We've got parallel passages that we can open. We can see the literary genre of this particular section. There's a handout. Again, we'll deal with handouts in a later video, but it's a handout that's been automatically created with maps and other relevant information. We've got a list of the people that are mentioned in this verse. John the Baptist in this case. We've got a little family tree of John that we can open, and some pictures that might be relevant to the life of John the Baptist. A little bit further down, we've got biblical places that are mentioned, and any resources, maps or other things that are relevant to those places. Again, just a simple click will open that for us. Again, we'll show you more on that later. A little bit further down, things that are mentioned. Now, the only thing that is mentioned in John chapter 3 verse 23 is water. So we've got other verses here where water comes up, and some pictures to do with water, a fountain and a cup, and so on. A little bit further on, we've got media resources. These are images that Logos thinks are particularly relevant to this passage. There's a music section. So if you have the Logos hymnal, then and there were hymns that were particularly relevant to this verse, they'd show up there. There are topics, and the larger the topic, the more relevant that Logos thinks it is to this section. And if I scroll down a little bit further, you'll see that the most important section, the one that's largest, has a little entry down here, and gives me references to dictionary articles where I can look that up. And if I was interested in another topic, say papyri, I can click on that, and you'll see down the bottom here it changes to papyri, and again one click and I can open that in a dictionary. There it is. Further down I can see the interesting words in the verse. Baptized is seen to be important. I can switch to Greek words if I prefer. I can compare the versions and see how similar they are to one another. Basically, the nearer the dots are to one another, the more similar they are. So you can see the NAS is quite similar to the ESV, but the NIV is quite different. Further down, just a few more sections left now. A link to PowerPointSermons.com, where I could buy a PowerPoint pack that's relevant to this particular passage. Some other sermons from sermonaudio.com that I can listen to that others have preached. I can listen to those for free. And some sermons that have been uploaded to sermons.logos.com by other preachers who use Logos that I can read, again for free. And finally some sermons from sermoncentral.com. Now, the passage guide is a really important part of Logos that, as you can see, gathers together lots of very relevant information from right across your library. And when you're using Logos, it's really important to remember that you've got reports like this. It's not like a paper library when you've got to think, what are the relevant books? And you've got to take them down from the shelf and maybe look up in an index or the contents to find the relevant passage. Logos does all that for you. And the passage guide is one of the key places that you can go to get quick access to all that information. There's another guide that comes here when you type in a passage in the Go button. It's called the Exegetical guide. Now, if the passage guide takes a broad view of all the different parts of your Logos library that may be relevant to John 3:23, what the Exegetical guide does is focus right in on the very words that are used in John 3:23. Let's go over and take a look. So, very similar to the passage guide, you've got various sections that can be expanded or collapsed. And the top section is for apparatuses, and they're used to help you understand the differences in the Greek text of the particular verses. And again, you can just click on one and it will open for you. Then we have various grammars, and these will be grammars that mention John chapter 3 verse 23. Let's look at this one. For example, if I open that one up, you'll see that here in footnote 4, we had a reference to John chapter 3 verse 23. That's why it's shown up in the Exegetical guide. A little bit further down is visualizations, and visualizations help you to understand the grammar of a particular verse or passage in the Bible. Now, with all the resources in the Exegetical guide and the passage guide, Logos only displays resources that you actually own. And depending on your Logos library and what base package you have will depend on whether or not you see things in each of these different sections. If I just click on one here, you'll get a view of roughly what I'm talking about. You can see how the grammar is structured there, and if you understand Greek grammar, then this might help you to really get to grips with the text. You can see the level of detail that you're getting in the Exegetical guide, particularly useful for those who are preaching from these passages. Now let's go down a little further, and we see a word-by-word section. This is perhaps the main section to the Exegetical guide. It gives me my verse in Greek and also in English. And then every single word that's used in that verse or passage is listed underneath. It tells me what the word is in Greek and what it means in English. It parses it for me. It gives me pronunciation of it. I'll just click that.
Amy.
And another one down here.
Da.
It gives me links to the various lexicons for that word, and I can click the More button to get even more links. And as I scroll down, you'll see that it really is doing that for every single word in that verse. It's very helpful then, if you're really trying to get to grips with the individual words. The Exegetical guide can give you quick links in order to be able to do so. Well, we will have other lessons later on that really do focus more on the passage guide and Exegetical guide. They're very important, but why not pause the video for now and have a little play with a passage yourself and have a look at these different guides. But now, let's imagine that we're studying not a particular passage of the Bible, but a topic. How can we use Logos to help us in that? Well, again, let's go back to the home page. And this time, instead of John chapter 3 verse 23, let's type in here the passage, the topic rather, of baptism. You can see as I'm searching, it's given me various Bible passages that I might be interested in, but actually it is the topic that I want, so I'm going to search for baptism. And again, it takes a minute or so to generate. But now I have a list, a search of my whole library for this word, baptism. Now again, we'll look at searching in more detail later on, but you can see that it's gone through all of my library, various topics here. linking to relevant links from logos.com as well. Further down you can see that it's found many thousands of results across my library. If I keep scrolling down, then you can see that I can go down to the various pages of the search results. Now, one quick little tip before we look at searching later on. When you want to open some of these search results, you could click on the heading here, and that will take you to the heading of the resource that you're interested in. But if you want to go not just to the heading of that section, but you actually want to go to the word itself, you can actually click on the search result word. So if I click on baptism here, it will take me not to the beginning of the section, but to the actual word that I've clicked on. So it's usually, when you're doing from a search result, you want to be clicking on the highlighted words, not on the section headings. Now, I've shown you the passage guide, an exegetical guide, and searching. There's another guide that might be of help to you, and we can get that from the guides menu. It's called the Bible Word Study, and it's particularly designed for words that are actually used in the Bible. So let's imagine we're doing a study on the word righteousness. Type it in and press enter or click the blue arrow. You'll see as we do that, we have various sections just as we did in the other reports. Again, you can collapse or expand them. The top section gives me links to my various dictionaries. Again, I can click the more link to get even more results. Further down, it gives me a list of the Hebrew words that are translated as righteous in the Bible. I can click on one of these wheels, and it will then give me a list of all the verses that are relevant to this particular Hebrew word, or where that Hebrew word is used. If I scroll further down, you'll see that I have a section now for Greek words, just the same. Again, I can click on any of the sections of this wheel, and I will get the results for that section. So these are the verses in the Bible where dikaios is translated as righteous or righteousness or something similar. A little bit further down, I've got textual searches. So this is searching in the whole of my Bible now, in the 5 Bibles that Logos is using at the moment, and it's telling me how many results I've got in each of those Bibles. Now again, the Bible Word Study, the Passage Guide, the Exegetical Guide, they're all very customizable, and we'll show you how to customize them later on. But for the time being, do use those study guides to help you in your Logos research. Now, it may be that we've got this far, and you can see that the English Standard Version is the Bible that's often used here. It's used at the top of this textual searches. If I hover over a verse, it's the English Standard Version that appears, and the English Standard Version that opens. Great if you like the ESV, but what if you don't? Well, I wonder if you noticed back on the home page, there's a section here to choose your preferred Bible. So perhaps you prefer the NIV instead. Well, just select it. Or maybe the NASB. Again, just click it. And if your Bible isn't listed here, click the More button and you can search for it, either by scrolling down for it or by typing here. Let's say you prefer the New King James Version. Just type and it will appear, and you can select it. And now if I type my Bible verse into this Go box, John chapter 3 verse 23, it will regenerate the report, but the main links now will be to the New King James Version, because that's my preferred version. You can see here that the New King James Version is the one that appears, and if I hover over links to the biblical text, it's the New King James Version that shows. 2 more things to show you in this video. The next thing we want to look at is the various panels and tabs, and Logos has a really helpful way of being able to resize and move things around. Let's imagine that you're focusing on the Bible text in this part of your study. You're not really interested in the commentaries for the time being. If you move your cursor between any of these panels, you'll see it changes into a double-headed arrow. That means that I can resize. Just click the mouse button, hold it down, and then move the panel to the size that you want it, and let go. You can do that with any of your panels, just resize them however you want them. Or maybe you decide, actually, I want to be able to see the NASB and the New King James Version at the same time. I can click and flick between the two, but maybe that's not what you want. Well, on any tab, you can move to any part of the layout that you wish. So if I click here in the tab, hold the button down, and move my mouse around, you can see that the blue shape shows me where the NASB is going to go when I let go of the mouse. So maybe I want it in place of the information panel. I can just let go, and there it is. Or perhaps I want to split this panel here into two. Again, I can move the NASB and put it, just move over to the right. There you can see, and this blue shape shows me where it's going to be. Just let go, and I'll get a new panel with the New King James there and the NASB here. If I want to close a panel, I just click the cross, and everything else will resize to fit. So to resize, we put our mouse over the join. To move, we drag a tab. And to close, we click the X. Now finally, if you were really trying to find your way around Logos and you want to get some help, there's a little help menu up here. If you click it, you can press F1 for help. You can go to some online video tutorials, or you can go to the forums where you can ask other users a question. I'll show you the help just briefly. You can see now, if I was looking, I could get help on my library. Just click and you can find the various options here, and you can have a read through and see if you're able to understand better how to use that particular part of Logos. But remember, the Logos online forums are also there to help you. Please feel that you can go and ask other users a question there, and they'll show you, I'm sure, how you can get even more out of Logos. So here in this lesson, we've gone through the very first steps: how to find, open, and read a book from the library. We've shown you the home page and the Go button. We've seen how we can choose our preferred Bible. We've introduced the passage guide, the exegetical guide, and the Bible word study. We've seen how we can search for words from the search box here. We've shown you the various panels and tabs and how you can resize them and move them around. And we've shown you how to get help. In later videos, we'll go into even more detail about all those features. But in the meantime, have a play round with what we've learnt so far.